And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Exciting that already so many people are here. Welcome to today's session about assignment compliance. Also a really special session for us since it's about a new product, a new service that we're working on at WorkFlex. I can still see many people are joining. We were also really happy about how many people registered. And also now that more people are logging in. So yes, today we are speaking about assignment compliance. We're speaking about our solution that we built, that we thought of for secondments, for expats when you're sending them abroad to do a job there. Also, while we're still waiting for other people, I see there are a lot of clients that already are familiar with WorkFlex, but there are also some new names, some new companies on the list. So while we're still waiting for some more people to join, let me explain what WorkFlex so far does. So far, WorkFlex already automates the compliance for workations, so for work from anywhere, but also for business trips. So we solve compliance through technology. But today we are here to look at the newest global mobility case that we are solving, that we're automating, talking about the topic of assignments. So, but before we dive into the topic, I'd say let's start with a round of introduction, so you also know who you're talking to, also especially for the people who don't know us yet. I think my face is also the most unknown here in this round, so I will kick it off. I'm Anna Luisa Grebe, joining the call today, the webinar today, from South Africa, from Cape Town, but well, normally I'm German, as you can probably hear on my accent. I am here leading at WorkFlex the visa service and now also the topic of assignment, which also is really special for me because I've lived in expat hubs. I lived in Singapore, I lived in Berlin, and also in Monterrey in Mexico. So I'm joining also the call here today to give you a bit more the go-to-market and product side of things. But now I want to also give the word to the compliance minds here at WorkFlex. I would say ladies first. Dorothee, please tell us about yourself.
Hello all. I just read in the chat, Anna, if I can, Alisa, okay, somebody is typing. All right, great, because she might have to change her settings. So I'm Dorothee Schweigard. I'm the Director of Compliance at WorkFlex. I've been now working for expats, global mobility since nearly 25 years. Started a traditional standard career at a Big Four, then was with a big company, taking care of my own expats, went to a smaller company where I did a lot of other also cross-border HR and expats. And then we were being expats ourselves, and went with our kids to Italy, and I was the trailing spouse. And yes, now at WorkFlex with my team, we are responsible for all the legal logic and the surrounding legal requirements for everything that we do. And I'm very happy to be here today. So maybe Pieter wants to.
Yeah, let me go next. Good morning, everybody. Great to see so many of you here. My name is Pieter. I'm Dutch, so joining from my home office here in Amsterdam. One of the co-founders at WorkFlex. Similar to Doro, a background in compliance, even though it's not 25 years, it's around 15 years right now. I used to work at PricewaterhouseCoopers for the vast majority of those 15 years, always in the area of taxes, global mobility, and now within WorkFlex, overall responsible for the compliance topic. Used to be an expat myself too. First worked at PwC in the Netherlands, but was then seconded to Germany for a few years and also lived the standard expat experience, or not standard, but let's say the unwished expat experience, returning back to the Netherlands and hating it, having changed a lot. The Dutch firm had changed a lot, obviously, and then you have to get back into it. Didn't like it at all, so I rushed back to Germany, virtually that is. So yeah, I have the experience of as an expat myself, and I've been working on the compliance topics for quite some years too.
Perfect. I'm also really looking forward to hearing some of your experiences. It's great that we have like an HR point of view, but also then the personal expat point of view, right? What worked good, what were the problems, that we can also look at both sides. I can also already see the chat is quite lively, so please keep that up. Whenever you have questions, or maybe if you can't hear us, there are technological problems, please write in the chat. You also have the function to ask questions there. So please, whenever you have a question, you're wondering about something, keep on asking them throughout the session, and we will try to answer all of them also throughout the session. Perfect. So I would say let's start. What you can expect in today's webinar that we talk about, okay, what actually is the struggle with assignment compliance? What do I need to keep in mind? What dimensions are there? But then also we are talking about the solutions that are already out there. And then of course also at the end, how we are solving it. And you also get a little sneak peek of what it will look like. Perfect. Then I'd say let's get started. And what I would like to get started with is actually with talking a little bit about definitions, so that we are all aligned. I feel like also in the discovery, when I talk to like nearly 100 clients, it's like, okay, everyone uses a different terms. They use assignment, secondment, expat, assignee. So I would like to ask you, Pieter and Dorothee, like what actually counts as an assignment? What is the definition here?
Dora, ladies first.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is somebody at the door, but I'm saying. So actually, there is no definition. So every company decides this differently. So there are companies saying, okay, we have a clear mark, less than 6 months, less than 3 months, more than a year. I would always say it's better to say from an intention. So if I send someone to be in another place abroad and become part of the local workforce there, then it is always an assignment. So we will have gray areas, but I would say that's a quite definite definition, because then I also have all the legal results of an assignment.
Yeah, I think nothing much to add. It shows the struggle immediately. What I consider personally an assignment differs for any company. That's so much we've learned over the past so many decades. Some people or some companies consider a 30-day trip already an assignment. Some even would consider a 1-year stay in another country more or less an extended business trip. So the definition is unclear. I think what we usually do see as maybe 2 topics when something becomes an assignment is that usually after 6 months, it will be a struggle to continue saying it's only a business trip, because it's very likely that there's going to be tax consequences in the destination country, and probably better to set it up as an assignment with an assignment letter as such. I think that's an important one. And the other one also, when we're looking at the duration overall, I think an assignment is usually not lasting any longer than 3 years. After that, we're rather talking about localization. But yeah, the term on itself is very hybrid, and I think it even got more hybrid over the past few years when global mobility was disrupted as a whole anyway.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, I can also already see that's a bit where the complexity comes in. Also, especially talking about compliance, if there's no real legal definition, right? Also, what you said, it got a bit more complex. I'd actually want to share a quote that I got when I did the discovery calls to see, okay, how we're actually going to do the product, the service. And one of the clients, they actually said, like, expert compliance has been a nightmare for decades. It's super time consuming, costly, and it gets more and more complex. Also here, I would be super interested in hearing your opinion, Dorothee. Like, what do you actually think is the hardest part, what you struggled also in your position as HR, but also Pieter, from you, from an expert point of view, but also audience here, also to keep it a bit more interactive, we would be super interested in also hearing your opinion, your struggles, what you find the most complicated with. I should have now published a poll, and there we would be super interested in hearing your opinions, that it's not just a monologue of us, but that we can make it an interactive session. If none of the options really fit, tell us in the chat, and while we are waiting for the results to come in, maybe Doro, you want to share what you found the most difficult?
Yes, I think the most difficult is that HR leaves somehow the normal HR position and has to dive a lot deep into special cases for the expats to kind of be the middle between advisors and the expats and host company and home company. And you have to ask so many questions that you usually don't want to ask, because you have to be the advisor and you are the one who knows or should know what is best. So I think that's a very difficult, because you have to be so into all those different cases to help your expat to make the best choice.
And Pieter, from your point of view, also maybe, well, as a tax lawyer, but then also from your personal experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so as a tax lawyer, I think, well, at least Doro and myself and many people in the audience, and by now you as well, Anna, we actually like the complexity of it, like working on the tax topics, on the social security topics, on creating assignment letters, etc. That's complex, that's a hard challenge, but obviously we like what we do. But that's the challenge. I think as an expat, even looking at myself, it's been a few years now that I was an expat, but still, compliance is not let's say a complex challenge. It's rather a burden. Maybe the fundamental issue is that people in our area, so Big Four, maybe even GM specialists, sorry to say, we live with the let's say the wrong assumption that our expats also like what we like. As an expat, I hated the whole compliance stuff. I just wanted to go. But the people around me and supporting me with the compliance, even though I very much appreciated it, they really thought that I was very interested in getting an hour briefing on social security topics, or an hour briefing as well on the tax topic and my host country, which, to be frank, I couldn't care less. I just wanted to go. I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to learn things. Of course, if compliance questions came up, I want them answered very quickly as well. But I think that's fundamentally the issue, that for expats, the compliance topics are not a cool challenge. They're really a burden. And balancing that, wanting to be compliant on the one hand, especially as the employer, and also keeping engaged whenever required, I think that's a very big challenge in daily practice for the people watching this webinar.
Yeah. Also now, thanks for sharing both. Also now looking at the results of the poll, right? I would say they're like similar results. So most people struggle with the tax-related issues, with navigating visa and work permit, but also the staying up to date, right, with the always changing global mobility rules. Also, the creating and managing compliance documents is a struggle for most, but not the most pain. Just now scrolling through the chat. Also, thanks for contributing there. The difficulty lies in making the internal stakeholders understand, well, that the answer to the case is complex. Yes, there is no clear answer, there is no clear assessment, but there still needs to be made a decision. And then also, of course, the personal expectations and problems. Yeah, we can see it's really like the tough to align between HR. They need to manage expectations, that everything starts on time for the expert, for the line manager, for host company, home country, but then also for themselves, right? When there is no clear answer, how can you actually make the decision? Yeah, also, as you said, Pieter, right, there is like a burden. There are like so many administrative, so many compliance tasks that need to be done by HR, well, also at the expert, but well, what actually is necessary to do during the assignment. Like, as you said, you got an hour briefing, you got this, you got that. What actually needs to be done when we are talking about compliance? Can you walk us through that, Pieter and Doro, about the 10 compliance risks that companies should look out for when sending someone on assignment?
Yes, of course, I'd love to. But before we do it, obviously we're seeing 10 what we call risk dimension on the screen. The good news is, if any of you have already joined earlier webinars or is familiar with WorkFlex, these risk dimensions are very similar to the ones that are relevant when someone is not necessarily on an assignment, but just working from a different country for a shorter duration, either as a workation or as a business travel. So that's the good news. The risk dimensions as such do not change. We're still talking corporate tax, we're still talking PWD, Posted Worker Directive, we're still talking labor law. The only thing is, similar as to business travel, each of these risk dimensions play out differently for each assignment. And of course, no person alive can be a specialist at all of these 10 risk dimensions. And that's where the complexity comes from, obviously. So if we super quickly run through it, the first one is visa and immigration. Pretty obvious, maybe not necessarily for EU passport holders going on an assignment like myself within the EU. But of course, when we're talking a little bit broader outside of the EU, then having a valid working title can be a very big struggle. Sometimes we're even talking first a title to actually enter the country and then requiring a second title to actually be able to work. So the visa part, which is a very big struggle in practice, takes a long time and is usually actually the factor that delays a expected start date of an assignment, just because it takes a lot of time and you're dependent on authorities as well. Then the topic of permanent establishment. Of course, when people are going on an assignment from the home company to the host country, hopefully they're going to work for the benefit of the host country, but this is not always a given. So the PE topic, the question, is this individual going to constitute a permanent establishment, a Betriebsstätte in German, of the host home company in the host country, yes or no, is still something to be considered. Second one is wage tax. It's obviously related to PE matters as well. In general, like I said before, whenever we're seeing a trip exceeding the 6 months, so 183 days, usually the assignee will require a payroll in the destination country that maybe doesn't include the social security contributions. Dora will get to that later, but it probably will at least include the wage tax in the destination country. So the assignee becomes taxable, needs to be included in the local payroll. But not only in the payroll, the personal income tax risk dimension is actually a new one. We're usually not looking at it from a business travel perspective, but we are looking at it from a assignment perspective, because most assignees, at least assignments exceeding, again, these 6 months, will not only pay wage tax in the destination country, they are very much likely to also having to do a personal income tax return in the destination country. But of course, also continue to have to do a personal income tax return in the home country. So that's usually where expats get support from tax lawyers like myself, and rightfully so, because it's really complex. Doro on Social Security? You're muted.
Yes. So thanks, Peter. So for Social Security, of course, this is pretty much regulated if you are within the EU, because you can apply for an A1 and then you can remain covered in your home Social Security system. It's a little bit more complex if we're looking at outside of the EU, because you have to, first of all, define whether there's a totalization agreement, and if there is one, what branches of the Social Security insurances are covered. And as soon as you know what branches are covered, you need to make a decision, what do I do with the uncovered Social Security branches? Do I want my expats that I'm sending out to contribute on a voluntary basis? Do we make them dormant? Do we pay for them to be able to return, which would be Anwartschaft in German? Yeah, so there's a couple of things to decide. And if there's no totalization agreement, the same question: can I still have them contribute? Or do we just let everything go? And of course, what happens at host, at the destination, if there's no totalization agreement in full, and how do we need to treat this? And directly after that, I have to think and make a decision about health insurance. So even if there is an A1, do I want to keep my assignees and maybe attending family covered under the home health insurance? Or do I grant a private health insurance? What would that mean? How do I get them access to, well, English-speaking doctors if they go to a country where maybe, you can't really rely on the local language because you might not be able to talk it that good. So that's a big compliance risk, because if my assignees have a health insurance issue, and the insurance is not covering it in full, yeah, that directly falls back on the employer that has sent this assignee there. The next compliance topic I have to think about is labor law. And I think we already, exactly, Ryan said, understanding local employment law, holiday entitlement rules around overtime. That is actually always also an issue on business trips, because there are some major rules that apply to everybody working in a country, but even more so if a person gets assigned to a country. So I have to wrap my mind around, okay, what labor law do I want this to be under, to be covering the whole assignment? What about my home rules? Do I want to just ignore them? Can I ignore them? Normally, the home contract will be made dormant and there will be an active contract at host. But what about differing holiday entitlements? Because for the Social Security, I have to promise that the home rules will still apply. So yes, also labor law wise. The next one is something that is actually quite often ignored for assignments. So assignments within the EU might trigger a posted worker directive registration, which would be the EU-Meldung in German. So if the person is sent to another European country to provide services, we have to register that person, even if it's an assignment and longer than a couple of days or weeks. Yeah, so this is also relevant, as well as data protection rules. So I have to wrap my mind around what data will the assignee work on whilst on assignment, and with what device. So is the assignee bringing their own laptop? What about an encrypted drive? Like in China, I can't use encrypted drives. So all this I have to keep in mind before I send somebody, and I have to give them some advice how to act compliant. And the last is health and safety. So back when I started, this would probably always be called a hardship. But a hardship is kind of like a negative way to saying, okay, I'm sending you there and you will have a hard time. Health and safety means, okay, what environment will I send the employee in? What about freedom of speech? What about pollution? What about water and air quality? So everything that you have to wrap your mind around, because it's your employee and you have to take care of him and his family. So yeah, that is the 10th and final risk assessment that you have to think about.
Perfect. Thank you so much through walking us all also with examples through all the dimensions we need to look at. As Pieter already said, it's quite similar to business travel. However, there are some additional ones one needs to look at, especially the longer the assignment gets. There's one question in the chat from Simona. She's asking if the short-term assignments, setups and posted workers are linked and required as of day one, if the assignee is performing work scope in the host. Dorothee, you're nodding. You
Exactly.
You want to take that one? Perfect.
Exactly. So the registration is from day one, from hour one. Because it's actually to ensure that local rules, minimum wage, maximum work hours are respected. So yes, the sign up does not change the rules. So unless there's no different rule whether it's a business trip or a short-term assignment or a longer-term assignment. If an employer sends an employee to provide services in another country in the European Union or in the continental, or not continental, but in the continent of Europe, then a posted worker registration has to be thought about.
Perfect. If there are any other questions, please keep it up and ask in the chat. We like that very much. Also, Michaela asked before if we're going to share the PowerPoint presentation. Yes. Also, everyone will get the recording sent to, so you also can have the slides afterwards for your material. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, right, when doing assignments, even more than for business travel. So what we're wondering, or what I wondered also before diving deeper into this topic, is, okay, what solutions are actually out there? How are companies solving that, right? Are they doing it in-house? What else is there on the market? And basically what I have seen now in the calls, that companies currently normally either rely on like expensive lawyers, like for example, go to the Big Four to help them, especially with tax questions, how to set it all up, what it means. Also all the questions that you raised before, Dorothee and Pieter. There are also other traditional software tools out there that are, some said, a bit more outdated. And then also many companies still manage in-house, which means they do all the hours of research themselves, organize themselves in spreadsheets and in Excels, right? Maybe here my question for you, Pieter and Dorothee. What was used in your experience? And yeah, well, what struggles did you have with it? Also, what did you like about it?
Yeah, let me take it. I think there's two things. So what I've seen over the past 15 years is, yes, there are some, let's say, technology tools that help manage assignment compliance, even though they're not so deep into the compliance. That's the first part. I think they're rather workflow tools or databases showing who are my assignees, what's the status. So nothing too advanced, which also makes sense because technology 15 years ago wasn't necessarily super advanced. There will always be the requirement, at least today, for Big Four support usually. if there are tools that do more in place, then they're highly customized. So I've only seen that with very large companies that have fully customized a particular software tool, which is also super expensive and rather rigid. So that's, I think, number one. Yes, there are some technologies in place, but for, let's say, regular sized companies with maybe 10, 20, 30 assignees, they're not valid. And there we only see Excel and just a massive time spent. And then the other thing, which is actually more surprising when we started thinking about assignment compliance. Look at WorkFlex. We started with workation compliance, added business travel compliance, but our end game has always been to basically build the entire global mobility compliance suite, covering all the use cases. So when we started thinking about our assignments, we kind of realized that this has been done exactly in the same manner for the past, 25 years. We can't go back longer because we don't have anyone with more experience in that area. It's always been highly manual, very expensive with the use of Big Four. Nothing really changed. And that's quite weird because the world has dramatically changed over the past 25 years, obviously. But still, apparently, we're spending a lot of time on creating assignment letters, which are super specific. Still, we're doing, like I said earlier, we do social security meetings in home and host and text meetings in home and host. And we have all types of long policies that are company-wide or supposedly company-wide, but then play out for each expat very differently. So highly individual processes, nothing really changed. And that's actually the biggest surprise when we started looking at it. And of course, we also asked ourselves the question, isn't it about time that we start, let's say, approaching assignment compliance maybe in a little bit different, more progressive way?
Yeah, maybe before we discuss this further, also like what we pictured, I would also be interested in hearing from the audience, like how you are currently solve it, because we have such a different types of companies in here. So again, I will publish another poll with some different options to answer. If none fits, please again share in the chat. You should now be able to see the poll so that we can then also discuss that further. What is also the most common approach right here from the audience that is used? What is done in-house? I see a mix on how it's done. Yeah, answers are coming in. So I see that most common approach, over nearly 60% of answers say they use a hybrid approach. So some is done in-house, some is outsourced. Also here, if don't be shy, it would be interesting to see, okay, what is done in-house, what do you have outsourced in the chat. Some 30% do everything in-house manually, actually, and we have also 11% who have everything fully outsourced to external advisors such as lawyers or the Big Four. Yeah, some 2% only say they have a self-made software tool, actually. Well, that also depends for sure on the volume you have of experts in the company. So I'd say definitely the majority uses like a hybrid approach. Some goes to the lawyers, some is outsourced, some in-house. Basically confirming also what you described now, Pieter. Also probably depending, as we learned before, taxes were the most complicated, visa is the most complicated. So also they're very, very interesting. I see still people typing, but maybe Pieter, you want to continue actually, since you said, we were wondering, okay, is that really still the most up-to-date approach, that nothing has changed for decades? What is like the vision behind us now pursuing also assignment as the new global mobility case?
Yeah, a very good question. So like I said already, so the vision definitely is first, as WorkFlex, we want to build the global mobility compliance suite. So adding assignments to our platform makes sense. If there are technology tools in place now, usually they're only focused on either business travel or assignments. That doesn't really make sense, or it really doesn't make sense, because usually assignees are heavy business travelers as well. And at least for their assignment compliance, you want to know where they were for business trips as well. And the other way around, if someone's an assignee, you want to know in order to be able to do the business travel compliance for these individuals well. So making it part of the suite, that's obviously a very big part of the philosophy behind this. Then the second one is technology. At WorkFlex, we're a true technology company. We're looking at automation on the one hand, obviously requesting an A1 totally fully manual doesn't make sense. PWD notifications, doing this all manual, not only the notification itself, but especially also the data gathering for it, doesn't make sense. We're looking at automating compliance tasks, but not only this, especially in the assignment solution, we're also leveraging another type of technology, which is more into the direction of AI, smart technology, to help our clients. Because I think that's the biggest learning that we had when we started working on this, that the exploration phase for assignments is massive. Our clients are not only looking for, I have an assignment here, I need an assignment letter, I need a briefing left or right. No, it's actually one or two steps back. We're thinking about an assignment. I may need an assignment letter, but maybe I can do it as a business trip. And the whole exploration, kind of having the conversation with clients, what should I do? How should I set this up? Is a very big part nowadays of global mobility. I think back in the day, it was a little bit more rigid. We're going to send someone from Germany to China to build up the local business or something like this. Today, it's very different. Maybe we're going to go with a few business trips, or we're going to indeed make an assignment out of it, or hire someone locally. The exploration around assignments is much bigger. So that's where I think our product's also going to focus on very strongly. Not only, okay, we've got an assignment now, we want to easily and efficiently create the documentation required for this, which we will do, assignment letter, etc. But also support rather on the exploration phase, helping clients and global mobility specialists define, well, is this actually the right thing to do? Should I be doing this? Or are there alternatives too?
Thank you, Pieter. Yeah, like clicking in there with a question in the chat, because someone is asking, okay, why do I actually need an assignment? Like, why would I need to assign employees if I already use a business trip or vacation, or there are also EOR solutions out there? Like, actually, why would a company send someone on assignment?
Yes, I would answer that. So actually, the assignment comes in where the business trip ends. So if I need to send my assignee, my employee somewhere to do a business for a longer period of time, and I will definitely be facing different visa requirements, tax requirements, social security requirements. I have to grant a different health insurance. The person might be wanting to take their family, then it's an assignment. So of course I can say, yeah, I only send, like I send Max for 5 months, and then I send Moritz for another 5 months. If I can do that, I don't need to send either for 10 months. But sometimes, like Pieter was sent for different reasons. We were back in the days sent because there was a local need for that special knowledge for a longer period of time. So yeah, if you can't do it virtually, then you have to install that person there. And that brings me to the next question. Well, would an EOR help? Actually, an EOR is for a little bit a different scenario, because you use an EOR if a person lives in another country than you have your employer established. So if you send somebody to your daughter company because they need this expertise, then the EOR doesn't help, because you can just send it to your daughter or sister company and just install the person there, because that's what you probably need. So the EOR helps you to remotely hire people with all the challenges and disadvantages and advantages, but it doesn't help you when you have an assignment. Okay, so I think I didn't miss anything. The other ones were the answers to Sina's questions. How do you manage it? Regarding the topic, sending different persons could also, exactly. So the PE, even if you just keep on making longer business trips, as soon as you have a relevant presence in that country, you will have a permanent establishment that no employer of record can kill. And sometimes, I mean, you have a reason to send them there, and then you might create your establishment on purpose. How would you class if the employee wants to move to another country for good, work from abroad? Well, that's not an assignment. The assignment is clear, an employer need. So there are a lot of employer needs. You need to explore the country. You want this person to get a different culture, so you send them there. Of course, career assignments are there. The local company needs the expertise. You need more collaboration. You want to install processes there. But if an employee comes and says, yeah, we want to go back to the UAE and we want to keep working for you, that's a remote work scenario. So that would be maybe an employer of record, or you can do a total remote work scenario by yourself. Anything to add from your side, Pieter?
Only that this so nicely shows the problem or the complexity, what I said already with the exploration and the definition, right? So yeah, maybe we wouldn't call this an assignment, and I agree. I don't think this is an assignment. Someone who, for private purposes, wants to live somewhere else and continue to work for, in this case, the UK company. But look, these are the real global mobility problems of today. So we're again back to exploration. That's I think the biggest challenge in GM today. Not necessarily solving assignment compliance, which should simply just be done in a much more modern and more efficient, more progressive way, but also one step back, supporting GM specialists or HR specialists in what use case do I actually have at hand? And no, maybe I can call it an assignment. Maybe I should do business trip, or maybe we're talking about remote work. Regardless, what do I need to consider?
Yes, perfect, Pieter. Let's actually talk about this, what you now described, because what we see is basically there are the three phases of an assignment, just to visualize. As you said, Pieter, the biggest questions, what we heard now, especially also what you raised in the chats, is really, okay, how do I set it all up? Like, what is this? What is the smartest thing to do in terms of costs, in terms of compliance? What does it actually take to be compliant? What do I need to do as HR? How much work needs to be done? How long will it take? So this exploration phase is really something that has changed, because there's so many options now, but compliance hasn't really changed, and solutions out there have neither. So that's also Pieter has already started to tell you about, is that where we would like to come in, especially also with the help of AI, that is now also really raising very quickly over the weekends. New AI versions get released basically every day. The race is on. But similar as you know it maybe from our other solutions for business travel and workation, like we help you to find out, okay, what needs to be done from a compliance perspective, but then we also help you with a concrete document preparation, which means also WorkFlex can do assignment letter, it can do the balance sheet, the cost estimate, it can do the A1, the COC, PWD, insurance, in German, all the Anwartschaften. But that's not where it stops for an assignment to be compliant, but also during an assignment. there needs to be done a lot in order for you, but also for the expat to be compliant. So if it might be through a travel calendar, a tax calendar, you want to have all the documents ready at one place. But then also there needs to be a specific compliance assessment for an expat who goes on a business travel and who goes on a workation. Pieter, you raised that before, but here I would just like to ask you again, why does it matter? What is different in terms of compliance if now an expat goes on a business trip?
Oh yeah, very, very different. By the way, I totally forgot to mention it earlier, but it came to my mind just now when you're talking about documentation during an assignment. I think one of the biggest pains back in the day, at least when I was an expat myself, I had to fill out a lot of documentation. I'm seeing travel calendar, but of course, tax questionnaire. And I think I filled out exactly the same information at least 25,000 times, which is very annoying, time consuming. And if you look at today's world, it's also rather stupid, right? It's just not necessary. So that just as a side mark. But yeah, very different. I think the main, also looking at the time, I think the main difference between a business trip and an assignment simply is, well, two things. One, assignments are very expensive and business travel does not necessarily need to be that expensive. It's very much related, of course, to the external support that you get. But the other difference is, well, and it's a consequence of the first one, really, business trips are usually compliance-wise a lot easier. Of course, it's a difficult thing to say as a lawyer that things might actually be easier, but especially if you look at visa, the shorter, business trips are usually shorter, the shorter a stay is, the easier usually visa topics get. If you can prevent any local taxation, any local payroll tax, because the duration is below 183 days. It's not always like a strict rule, but if you can prevent local payroll, well, very easy. Then you don't have to include this person on the local payroll. So I think business trips are usually cheaper and easier.
And
Okay.
Anna?
Yes, Doro, please.
May I ask something? But what is super difficult when one of these expats does another business trip or does a vacation like temporary work abroad, because then the person might have an active payroll in country one, a dormant payroll, shadow payroll in country B, pay Social Security in country A or B. Well, and then, okay, where do they have an existing A1 to cover the expat scenario, but if they go to another country, yeah, they need another A1 or maybe a COC. What about the other dormant Social Security branches? Do I have to do something when they go traveling? So yes, there's a lot of things to think. So it's not that you only need to talk about the assignment, but if the assignee moves around whilst on assignment, that even adds to the complexity.
Yeah. Also, just because from a visa point of view, also know that for specific visas, you need to check if re-entry is possible, how long you can actually be abroad, so that you also can re-enter with the work permit or with the entry visa you once had. So also there, which also makes sense, to have the vision, to have all the global mobility cases on one platform, what you described before, Pieter. So then I would say, since looking at the time, we move along, and I will tell you a little bit more also what exactly our solution is like, that I keep the promise to give you a snapshot of what we're actually planning with. Also, of course, if that is not enough, what I can now share in 5 to 10 minutes to also let you go on time, you also have the option, of course, that we speak after in a little demo to speak specifically how you do it, and then you can also see in practice what I am sharing and telling you now about. So basically, what Pieter already explained before is that we will be there throughout the whole phase. We will be there for you in the exploration phase and the preparation phase with documents, but then also when the expat is on assignment, so you can be compliant all the way. How do we do it? Well, as soon as you and HR and Global Mobility know, okay, someone needs to go, let's say, to China because you're opening up a new entity there and you need the knowledge there. You don't know yet who, doesn't matter, because we give you like an explore function where you give us some basic assumptions that you already know, like, you know, for example, the host country, you know, it will be a physical assignment, you know, the approximate duration, and you can enter some parameters. And based on this, we will give you an assignment compliance assessment. Those who are already clients, you can picture this similar to the compliance summary and risk assessment, you know, from business travel and workations. It will basically summarize what there is to do for the 10 risk dimensions, compliance dimensions we showed you before. It will say what type of visa is necessary. It will tell you what to do for taxes, social security, what to keep in mind for health and safety, all these things, so you can wrap your mind about it. But of course, we also know these assumptions might change, or you would like to try out, okay, how would it be different if someone now does not stay longer than 6 months, but rather only 180 days? So then you can play around with assumptions. So you also see, okay, what makes the most sense for business? How would it change? Like, maybe we don't need to get then this specific work permit that takes that long, or for taxes, social security. You can see, play around, and get these assessments, not like waiting for weeks that the lawyer gives it back to you in a lengthy summary, but you can actually get that in minutes and not weeks. And then, of course, that is our compliance assessment, since we're also a compliance platform. But as I said, we would then also give you actionable recommendations on how actually to do it, meaning that we would do the assignment letter, the to-do lists you would get clearly formulated for an HR and for the expat, and then also help you to get the visa and work permit with insurances, final balance sheet. So basically everything there is to do, we will help you with. And in the platform then, it is transparent, like what there is in terms what you need to do, but also you can find everything there is to this case at one specific place. So everything is documented there. The expert can see, you as HR can see, maybe the line manager needs to approve something. That can all be triggered from the WorkFlex platform. And this also can then replace the Excel sheet that is still used by so many companies, where that is maybe not the most up-to-date version how it should be. So you have an overview where everyone is. When they come back, there will be alerts and notifications so that you're also aware, okay, the repatriation process needs to start, so that the assignee again has a position in the company when he comes back from assignment. But also if, for example, you decide to extend the assignment, there will be notifications if the visa would expire before, like that everything is really taken care of, and that you can outsource your assignment worries to WorkFlex. And also, as said, Pieter mentioned the tax calendar before, the travel calendar, where they need to fill in, okay, where have I been? What have I done in that day? We would also support with that, so we can actually do the whole compliance suite and be there for you throughout the whole process, for HR, but then also for the experts themselves. And of course, then also to do the expert compliance for the business travels and workation, what Dorothee explained before, that also there it is regarded that the expert can re-enter the country with the visa, with the A1, that is taken care of. That will all be part of the latest solution that we are currently working on. So perfect. I already see the first question, which is this a standalone platform, or is it possible to have an interface to service now? basically, Pieter, also feel free to chip in here, but WorkFlex is like a global mobility platform. We have integrations with different booking tools, with different HRIS. That is how we are solving and importing, also for business travel, especially. For an assignment, it would be triggered also from HR via the platform. Yes,
Okay,
are you going
if
to
I can add, if I can add, Anna, to this. So yes and no, Heimo, thank you very much for the question. So WorkFlex on itself is a standalone compliance platform. So for instance, for business travel, we integrate with HRIS and we integrate with booking platforms, but we are a standalone platform where we store the documentation, etc. And same would be for the assignment compliance solution. So yes, we can integrate with all types of other softwares or platforms. Of course, it depends a little bit on what is exactly required, but we will remain a standalone solution. The reason for this is, if you go back to the first quarter of this webinar, for very big companies, entirely custom-built ServiceNow platforms or other software, we don't want to go into that direction, fully customized left or right, because it basically kills the scalability, and we also feel that it's not required. But we will integrate to get the data from places where we need it from, and we can of course also integrate the other way around, where we actively push data or documentation back to systems that our clients would like to work.
Perfect. Then looking at the time, answering some final questions, but I also now just launched a link through which you can book a further consultation, because I've also seen what the cost approximately is, and some more specific questions. We'd be absolutely happy to discuss that in a further call. Also, if you would like to see, for example, what such an assignment compliance assessment would look like, and also how the process, how it would actually work, I think the best is if we book an additional slot. One answer I can give also is the visa lead. Are you going to offer visa and work permit support directly? Yes. So we have our own in-house travel visa support, through which we will obtain the entry visas and also all the visas that are electronically available. However, when it comes to like local work permits, we work together with local partners, due to the fact because you need partners in the countries there that take over that process. But also there we have a partner that we will align directly. You don't need to log into another platform. We take over that for you. And then one last question, I think then we call it a day, would be from Vanessa. Will there be a possibility to initiate other providers within the assignment workflow, moving company, ICT language training? So that is definitely also on our roadmap. That will come. It will not be in version 1, but we also have a wide selection of partners that we can refer you to that take care of these services that you mentioned, Vanessa. Perfect. Anything else? What you now saw, Doro and Pieter, while I was talking?
I answered to Jakob that he might just saying if he might need more assistance, he can also contact us through your link. And then Osina asking for point 4 from the assignment workflow. Do we have a point 4? Because it says only point 3 on that.
Yeah, I'm also not really sure what that is referring to. But also happy to explain that in a further call to be worthy of everyone's time.
Okay, maybe here. Assignment-specific documentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here we go, Osina. But as said, everyone will receive the slides after and the recording. So thank you very much for this interactive session, also for taking part in the polls, taking part in the chat. It was very lively. We hope that you liked it. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us, book a free demo, book a free call. and to see the solution more in practice than just the snapshot. Then I hope you have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the day and see you soon to another webinar of WorkFlex.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye all.